Welcome to the Flynn Brothers Podcast. I'm John.
And I'm Jimmy. Today's big idea, the best movie year of the century, part 2.
We discuss the movies of the 2000s, broken down year by year into 3 categories: acclaimed, popular, and Flynn Brothers favorites.
Later, we talk about why I love Nancy Meyers, Larry the Cable Guy's incredible 3-year run, and the slow death of the classic comedy.
Finally, this is just part 2 of a 4-part podcast, so tune in the next couple of weeks as we complete our deep dive into every movie year of the 21st century.
It's all coming up, but first, here's the Solons.
Uh-huh. Oh yeah. 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 Uh-huh. Oh yeah.
All right, part 2. So we are going to look at the movies of the 2000s, and we're breaking them into 3 categories. There's going to be some overlap amongst the categories, but the categories are acclaimed. So these are going to be award nominees, award winners, possibly some that over time just have received critical acclaim. Critics and audiences have revisited them. The next category, popular, so beloved by audiences. They often will rerun on cable or streaming favorites. And then the final category is going to be Flynn Brothers favorites. So those are ones that hold sentimental value for John and myself. We'll try to do kind of some under the radar ones. Certainly we have some favorites that'll be in the acclaimed and the popular, but we'll kind of reserve Flynn Brothers favorites for the under the radar ones.
We're populist guys. We like things that are acclaimed as well, and then these are also just movies that, for whatever reason, maybe fell through the cracks right into our greedy little hands.
A couple caveats. These will mostly be American films. Sorry, we're not super cool cinephiles who see every foreign film that's ever been made, but these will mostly be American films.
And for the most part, we were in our single digits during the early 2000s.
Early
so
2000s,
we weren't really
we weren't
getting out there too far.
We weren't into the
afield.
French New Wave. Another thing, ones that have stood the test of time, sort of would describe these movies. We're not going to do ones that were sort of flash in the pan award winners. These will be ones that even 20 plus years later we're still talking about. And
like this podcast, we're seeking evergreen content.
Correct. And look, if you think we forgot any movies, you can always write us an angry email at our business email, flynnbrotherspod@gmail.com. We love angry emails. And if you'd like, you can follow along at home on IMDb, Wikipedia. We'll be talking about a lot of movies you may want to jog your memory on. So you got those pulled up in the next tab. That's totally cool. And basically, if you listen to part 1, we deep dove into the movies of 2019. We were really luxuriating and reflecting on these movies. It was like we were sitting and relaxing in a jacuzzi. This podcast, part 2, will not be sitting and relaxing in a jacuzzi. This will be dipping a toe in the water and moving on to the next pool. Does that make sense?
Yes, we're going to be sprinting through 10 pools.
Part 1 was a 7-course dinner. Part 2 is a Costco sample. A little baklava with pistachios in it, for instance.
Yes, I think I will.
Thank you very much.
A scalding hot soup. Yes.
Excellent. Vegetable soup. Excellent. So yeah, the goal of this is, we think 2019 is the best movie year of the century. That's our preconceived notion. So we're going to see if there are any other years that are worthy of competing against 2019, and then we'll have kind of a final showdown in part 4.
We're scientists. We're testing our hypothesis.
Yeah, we're testing our hypothesis. So stay tuned. All right, moving to the year 2000.
The dawn of the century.
The acclaimed films from the year: Gladiator, which won Best Picture; Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon; Aaron Brockovich, and Traffic. Interesting note about Aaron Brockovich and Traffic, both directed by Steven Soderbergh.
Oh, how about that?
2 Best Picture nominees in 1 year. You're a big Gladiator guy. I enjoy Gladiator. I would say you love it, though. Is that right?
It's an absolute epic. Russell Crowe, a true movie star, from riches to rags, back to riches. Joaquin Phoenix, just despicable in his role. I really don't see what there isn't to get riled up about. I want to be in the arena after watching Gladiator.
I had a Spanish teacher. It was his favorite movie, and he said, there is no theme that is not in that movie. Excuse the double negative. Do you think that's a fair assessment? Is every theme ever in that movie?
It's really an exceptional movie. I think if you were to show a movie to an alien, Gladiator would be one that they'd be like, this Earth. They've got some good stuff here.
I'm going to stay away from that Maximus fella. All right, next
Whatever
category.
happened to Rome?
Next category. Popular. Meet the Parents with De Niro and Stiller. How the Grinch Stole Christmas, which still replays every year during the holidays. Really the scene that sticks out to me from the movie is in the early part of the film, they establish how vilified in Whoville the Grinch is. All the Whos live in Whoville, and the Grinch is up in his mountain. And the Whos, through some reverse gravity miracle of engineering, send all their trash to the Grinch. And you think, oh my God, like these Whos are really terrible people. But then you get to know the Grinch, and it's like, oh my God, he loves trash. Like he loves eating all their banana peels and coffee filters. And like, and it's just.
He eats a glass bottle at one point, just takes a bite out of it.
I don't know why. That
I do
sticks in
think
my head.
one thing that's great about the movie is that How the Grinch Stole Christmas can't be more than 30 pages long.
Yeah.
And they were just like, well, we got to fill this out. We got to flesh this out. It's like, what if they just throw all their trash up there? And the Grinch, he eats the trash. This was an idea that was had in the writing room of the Grinch.
Last popular movie, Almost Famous. Flynn Brothers favorites. This is one of your all-time favorite movies. The Coen Brothers, Oh Brother, Where Art Thou? Why do you love this movie so much?
George Clooney talks in this film in a way that blew open my mind as a small boy.
Right.
I did not realize you could put together words with such vocabulary and suavacity and just this general charisma that he carries himself off with, and he's just so smooth talking, and it made me excited about language.
Yeah, it's a great movie. It's, for those who haven't seen it, it's based on the Odyssey, but it takes place in like Depression era South. And apparently the Coen Brothers had never read the Odyssey. They just are so brilliant. They decided to just base a movie on a book they had never read, and it's a wonderful movie. I believe the soundtrack won the Grammy for Best Album of the Year.
Yeah, it's routinely on the charts. John Goodman gives a great performance as the Cyclops.
Right.
There's a lot to
Turturro,
like.
Tim Blake Nelson. It's a great cast.
A
Great
perfect
cast.
trio of fellas.
Holly Hunter's also in the movie.
That's right, as George Clooney's upset yet repressed wife. I've said my piece.
Next movie in the Flynn Brothers favorites, Chocolat.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of a curveball. I don't know that most people who know us would think we love Chocolat, but it's a really good movie. Very romantic, very winsome. It's got a early Johnny Depp performance. He kind of plays like a gypsy guitar player.
Yes,
right?
He's kind of in the prior evolution to Jack Sparrow. He is sort of a pirate because he's Roma, I believe. They're on the water.
Sure.
Roma, I think, is the preferred term of those people. Who knows?
I
but
see.
yeah, and he's very dashing. He has sort of an Irish accent in it. It's just a great movie about like pleasure, and do you deny yourself pleasure? Do you let yourself have pleasure? Do you have chocolate? Do you sleep with Johnny Depp on a boat? These are the questions that Chocolat asks, and most of the time answers in the affirmative.
Last Flynn Brothers favorite of 2000, Emperor's New Groove. Very fun animated movie. Holds up really well. I think I rewatched it a couple years ago. Very tight runtime. I think it's like a 70-minute movie or something.
Yeah, maybe
like
in
that.
the 80s, but no
It's
more
re-
than 90. Certainly not.
It's really tight.
If I were to put a number on it, I'd say 83.
I think if I'm betting my life, 74. We're gonna fact check it right now.
I'll say this: David Spade's finest film performance.
78.
Split the difference.
Our producer Will just fact check. Thank you, Will. All right, moving on to the year 2001.
We don't think the year 2000 not a contender.
No.
Great films, not a contender.
Not a contender. So we'll move on to 2001. The acclaimed films from this year: A Beautiful Mind, which won Best Picture. Russell Crowe really, back to back Best Pictures. That's
was hot.
incredible. He was hot. Next acclaimed film, Lord of the Rings, Fellowship of the Ring. Really great film. I think we'll get to Return of the King later, but kind of between 1 and 3 are sort of our favorites in terms of Lord of the Rings. Our producer Will loves 2, but yeah, what do you think? You sometimes say 1's your favorite, don't
1,
you?
I think, is the most fun because you're meeting all the guys. You got the rounding up the gang scene. Well, something that struck me on rewatch recently is just how insane it is that Frodo's like, I'll be the one who takes the ring. It's all these legendary men and elves and dwarves, the great champions of their race, and they're all arguing, and Frodo's like, I'll take it. And then when Gandalf hears him say that, he's just like, oh, God, oh, no, oh, it's so bad, because he knows what's going to happen. It's not going to be spoiler alert, it's no easy trip for old Frodo Baggins.
It ain't no picnic. Next acclaimed film, Moulin Rouge. We mentioned Baz Luhrmann in our Elvis episode.
Sexy film.
Yeah, it's a very sexy film.
That Roxanne number.
Yeah, Nicole Kidman and it was the male lead, Ewan McGregor, I think, right? They're really phenomenal in it.
Scintillating chemistry.
And then not a big award contender from this year, but a very acclaimed film, Christopher Nolan's Memento. That was really the one that propelled him kind of into the limelight. Popular films from 2001, we got Training Day. You know, you pretty much can't go more than a day and a half without seeing the Denzel King Kong speech on your social media feed. It's so iconic.
It's kind of a movie that's better in its scenes than it is as a whole film.
I agree.
Like, it works well, but the Denzel, insert word here, the dropping of the hydraulics with the car, the
bling,
smoke
bling,
this.
bling, bling, bling. Yeah, the Dr. Dre song. Yeah, it's awesome. It is one where the sum of the parts is more than the whole. Oddly. Is that interesting?
Yeah, that's really well phrased.
Very profound. And
way to rework that idiom.
Yeah, hey, thank you, buddy. Another popular film, very much so, I think, in the years since, is David Lynch's Mulholland Drive, the late David Lynch, who just passed away as we're taping this. Something I found, I don't personally love Mulholland Drive, and, it's a very controversial, polarizing film. It was initially conceived as a TV pilot, and I think the network didn't want to pick it up. So Lynch added a half hour to it and released it as a feature. And some people love it. One thing I found so odd is when Lynch passed away, there was this obituary, and I saw it, all these obituaries, there's one in the New York Times and a couple other places where they were sort of just calling it his masterpiece with sort of no pushback. And just, first of all, an obituary is not really the time to just start debating which of the late director's movies was their masterpiece. It's a little uncouth, I feel like. But also, I don't know, at least for me, Blue Velvet, Elephant Man, he has other movies that, while they are still his vision, they're a little more clear and coherent. They're still surreal, but they're a little more clear and focused and coherent. And I just find it so odd that, yeah, I mean, if you were writing an obituary about a director, do you think that's the time to start claiming what their masterpiece was?
No, I think David Lynch, though, some of the couple things that come up immediately when you think about them is really, really striking visuals and slightly difficult to understand what his films are about. And that one, I think, encapsulates both of those things, too. So perhaps that's what made that happen.
Another popular film, The Royal Tenenbaums, big Wes Anderson movie. Shrek, of course, I think won the first ever Best Animated Feature Film, first ever time that was awarded the Oscars. Monsters, Inc., another great animated film. Harry Potter and the Sorcerer's Stone. We watched all the Harry Potters. We had seen a couple of them, but sort of first couple weeks of COVID when we knew we were going to be shacked up, we hunkered down and watched every single Harry Potter movie. And we walked away from it really feeling this one was the best one. Didn't you feel that way?
Yeah, I think what's so captivating about the Harry Potter world is similar sort of to the Fellowship of the Ring, is that you're getting the magic. You're getting the introduction to the magic, and it's almost more intoxicating to get your first taste of it than be eating the third and fourth course.
I agree. Last popular movie, Legally Blonde. I cannot count the amount of times I've seen 2/3 to all of that movie on TBS during my childhood. It's a great movie, man. Yeah. It is so sensational. Reese Witherspoon, great body of work. I know nowadays she's known for being, adapting the bestsellers and, Hollywood producer, powerhouse, but just a great filmography as an actress.
Yeah, really incredible range. Absolutely has the it factor in charisma, lands the emotional and comedic beats of that. Really just makes you, it's like, yeah, you can have it all.
Yeah. All right, Flynn Brothers favorites from 2001, Sexy Beast. Ben Kingsley gives a very memorable performance in this film. He plays a guy sent to Spain who is there to recruit a retired criminal to safecracker to rejoin for one last job, and he will not take no for an answer, and he uses the F word many, many, many times. And it's just a wonderful small movie, very simple, very intimate, really good performances. just the like epitome of the like Cockney British crime thriller. It just is a perfect
While
movie.
also being a subversion of it, because most of it is convincing Gary Gal Dove, played by Ray Winstone, to join this caper, but the caper itself is maybe 10 minutes of the movie. Like,
very
so
small,
little of it's
yeah.
crime, so much of it is dialogue, and it's really like a masterclass in terms of Ben Kingsley in one scene, I would say, says the word no 50 times, and in another scene says the word yes 50 times. Like,
it's one of those movies.
It's like a writing exercise, yeah.
Another Soderbergh movie in the Flynn Brothers favorites this time, Ocean's 11, really great. We talked about Matt Damon. He's good in a two-hander, a three-hander. He's great in this. The most memorable scene, I would say, there's a crackling, reuniting, sparkling dialogue scene between Clooney and Julia Roberts. That is just so phenomenal.
Does he make you laugh?
He doesn't make me cry.
Come on. That's
End scene.
That's movie making right there. Ocean's 11, I'd actually say, is another film where the parts are greater than the whole. That there are great scenes in it. I think when you really kind of watch it back, you're like, man, there's a lot going on here. And even though there's like the, this is how we did it, I also am still sort of hazy as to how they pulled it off.
It's a little like The Big Lebowski.
Yeah.
Every time you watch it, you're like, oh, yeah, I guess it hangs
That's
together.
right.
Yeah.
And then, I mean, all those guys, though, at the peak of their powers. Yeah.
Phenomenal cast. Last one in the Flynn Brothers favorites, Zoolander. Zoolander's a great comedy. It holds up. It was so of its time, but it holds up so well. We have a friend, Harry, other member of the Solons. It is his favorite movie, and I really can't blame him. And it reminds me of a line David Letterman once said about the comedian Norm Macdonald. David Letterman said, I know comedians as funny as Norm Macdonald, but I don't know any that are funnier. And I think the exact same rule applies to Zoolander. I know comedies that are as funny as Zoolander, but I don't know definitively that I could say any are funnier. I mean, it really, jokes per minute, laughs per minute, it's as high as it gets, and it is just such a wonderful comedy.
I think the other thing that's super unique about it is the fact that Ben Stiller and Owen Wilson are good-looking enough guys to feasibly play models.
Yeah.
Like, that's a really difficult needle, I think, to thread, to be like, I'm going to be a male model in this movie.
And it'll be funny and believable. It's awesome. 2001, great year. I don't know that it's necessarily a finalist, though.
I'm not putting it up there. Kind of lacks the great original film that you need, I think, to...
Doesn't have the zhuzh to go against 2019. So let's move on to 2002. Acclaimed. We have Chicago, which won Best Picture. Wonderful musical. We have Gangs of New York. This was sort of during Scorsese's lurid era, we'll call it, where just there's a lot of F-bombs, a lot of C words, a lot of gratuitous violence. He's kind of like... it was more purposeful in the early part of his career, and then in this later part of the career, it's been pared down a little bit. But there was this weird middle ground, kind of between like Casino and The Departed, where just like a few of the movies were just like overly lurid, and it was just kind of a time in our culture when you could kind of get away with it. And then looking back at it now, it's really cool. Like Leo's in it. Daniel Day-Lewis is in it. Cameron Diaz gives a performance.
She is in it.
She's in it doing an Irish accent that I'm not offended by. But yeah, dude, it just, I don't know. For me, it just doesn't hold up compared to
There's a
other
lot
movies.
of greasy hair and blood and grime, and it just sort of feels like Scorsese was at a point where who's going to tell him no? And also it's like, maybe he doesn't still have his fastball, but he's like, it's like Kobe in the 60-point game where he also shoots 60 times.
Right,
it's like,
right.
I'm getting these shots up. I'm going to put some film on the camera.
Next one, an acclaimed adaptation from the Charlie Kaufman script. Wonderful dual performance by Nick Cage. Jack Nicholson's About Schmidt. He's very good in this. I think he was nominated for maybe a Golden Globe. Kind of his last good movie, I would say. Well, The Departed, it's a good performance, but again, kind of lurid. Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers, our producer Will Slade's favorite of the trilogy. And Bowling for Columbine. That was another acclaimed film. This, for me, is a rare kind of serious documentary that I've rewatched and enjoyed rewatching. It's very serious. It's very tragic, but it's very stylish in the Michael Moore way of making documentaries. And, it's still obviously an issue we have going on in our country today. So I don't know. Do you feel like it's a movie that exists outside of its time, or do you feel like it's kind of a movie that's of its time?
I think considering the state of our nation, it is a bit of a timeless film. It's certainly the first time that I really ever thought about, the subject matter that it covers. And yeah, I mean, it's just really tightly put together, sharply edited. You can see why he was such a huge deal.
Next category, popular. Catch Me If You Can, directed by Steven Spielberg, starring DiCaprio and Tom Hanks. Talk to me about Tom Hanks's Boston accent and Catch Me If You Can.
Probably the worst Boston accent that's ever been done. It's the first time where everyone was like, what, dude, Tom Hanks is bad in this movie?
Right.
It would be something that would happen, sadly.
Would you rather take Hanks's Boston accent or Cameron Diaz's Irish accent? Better performance. What do you think?
I'm giving it to Cameron.
Wow. Oh, my God. Oh, my God.
Yeah, she's doing a lot
God.
more. She has to pretend to love greasy Daniel Day-Lewis with the false eye.
All Hanks has to do is chase Leo. Yeah, I get it. Spider-Man. Sam Raimi's Spider-Man. Wonderful, wonderful movie. Still holds up. A lot of the CGI really holds up, too, which is pretty cool.
Absolutely hilarious. Tobey Maguire was a high schooler.
M. Night Shyamalan's Signs. Another wonderful, rewatchable movie. Another Spielberg movie, Minority Report with Tom Cruise. Really fun, sleek thriller. Yeah, we've really enjoyed that one. Yeah. 8 Mile, the Eminem story. That's not the actual subtitle, but that's what the movie's about.
Really got
cool.
me fired up when I watched the battle rap scene on cable, even though most of the words are blocked out. It's Eminem, peak of his powers.
Matt Damon on his own in The Bourne Identity. Very popular. The whole Bourne trilogy was really popular in the 2000s. We rewatched the whole trilogy, I think, during COVID. It's pretty good. I just think there's better action movies. There's better action movie trilogies. I don't know. Why does it feel like it just doesn't quite land anymore?
Because the Daniel Craig Bonds came out.
Yeah.
Bourne Identity is a response to the campy Pierce Brosnan, I think, 007s and Sean Connery before that. And then the 007 took some notes and were like, well, we'll do that, but we'll just also put it in sick locations and there's going to be gorgeous chicks and check out Daniel Craig in a tuxedo.
Last popular 2002 movie, Lilo and Stitch, which is more popular now than it ever has been. We substitute teach and we'll go to these schools, some of these elementary schools, and every single kid has a Lilo and Stitch backpack. I know they're putting out a sequel or a remake or something like that, but it is insane how popular that movie is. And I have a theory, if you'll allow me.
Please.
My theory is there's these things you see, a trope, I'll call it, in kids' movies. I'll call this stock character the cuddly menace. Stitch is an example of the cuddly menace. There's always a scene in a trailer for a kid's movie where a grown-up comes up to a little kid or a little bunny. And,
crazy bunny, crazy squirrel.
right, and it's oh, you're so cute, you're so cute. And then the bunny or squirrel goes, rah, it's rabbit and attacks the person. And that's what Stitch is right? Stitch is kind of cute, but then he's rah, he's a crazy alien. And I think kids just really relate to the cuddly menace. I think they see themselves in the cuddly menace. And that is sort of my theory as to why Stitch has this timeless aura that has made him now more popular than ever.
Yes, yeah, an galactically wanted criminal Stitch. But yeah, the kids love. I think it's because of the power these little cuddly rascals have.
Yeah, could be. 2002, Flynn Brothers favorites. We have Austin Powers, Goldmember. I would say the best of the Austin Powers movies, which also begs the point. They're all good movies. Is it one of the best trilogies start to finish ever?
Absolutely. There's no down movie. There's no flabbiness. The movies just remake the movie 3 times, essentially with bigger budgets.
And the jokes escalate. And even though they have running gags, they escalate each time. And it's just a really wonderful trilogy. Another Flynn brother favorite, Big Fat Liar, which has one of our favorites, Paul Giamatti, in it. I love Big Fat Liar. There is a special place in my heart for Big Fat Liar because it was the first time I ever understood symbolism in film, and I will explain. So the main character, who's played by Frankie Muniz, is this kid named Jason Shepard. Shepard being the operative word. And he writes this story for a class that's called Big Fat Liar. And through a crazy series of events, he is hit by a limo on his way to school, story in hand, and his bike's mangled, and the car is a limo that is driving Hollywood hotshot producer I think his name's Marty
Marty
Wolf,
Wolf, yes.
played by Paul Giamatti. And so he gives him the ride to school, and Jason Shepard goes out of the car and he leaves the story behind. And this sleazy producer, Marty Wolf, grabs the story and he adapts it into his next big feature. And it's sort of this act of plagiarism. And to me, I was like, wait a minute. Jason Shepard, he's the shepherd. Marty Wolf, he's the big bad wolf. The story is the sheep, and the shepherd is trying to protect the sheep from the wolf.
Wow.
Isn't that brilliant?
Yeah.
Now, granted, the movie came out when I was 6, so I'm not going to claim that I thought of it when I was 6. It was probably more into the double digits, but still, I got to pat myself on the back for that one.
Astute observation, made a lover of film for life. Perhaps we're not even doing this podcast if Big Fat Liar doesn't happen. The lasting image to me from that is when Giamatti dives into the pool that Frankie Muniz has dyed blue, showers, and then he realizes he's completely blue, and he even has orange hair.
The shampoo, he
Yeah.
put, I think, some orange dye in,
yes.
so he gives them,
Got
he gives
it.
them the blue and orange look. Another Flynn brother favorite, a Dennis Quaid movie called The Rookie. Now, The Rookie was a movie we accidentally rented from Tower Video many times during our youth. Do you want to explain why?
The movie I liked was Rookie of the Year, which is about a little boy who breaks his arm and can suddenly throw high cheese fastballs in the upper 90s, maybe 100. Loved the movie. I think it's pretty easy to see why a young boy who liked baseball would be entranced by this tale. The Rookie is about Dennis Quaid, an old man who gets called up to the major leagues. It's almost the exact opposite story.
I remember when we would rent it, we'd always be like, we'd be like 10 minutes in and be like, oh my God, we rented the wrong movie, which just is not a thing anymore. But yeah, we're like, all right, well, we'll watch it.
We'll
We rented
watch it.
Last movie that's a Flynn brother favorite, Like Mike. And the only reason we love this is we were huge Kings fans at the time, and Sacramento Kings legend Chris Webber was in the movie, which I remember we always loved.
Oh, well, another part of it is the shoes. Very similar
yes.
to Rookie of the Year. A kid immediately gets magical powers. Also known for an early role of Jesse Plemons plays the bully.
Yeah, good point. 2002, though, I don't think it's a finalist year.
Nope, sadly not. Chicago, though, what a great Best Picture. Man, what a musical that is.
Wonderful. All right, moving on to 2003, Acclaimed. Best Picture that year was Lord of the Rings, Return to the King. I think it's the best one. Really, the reason why is Gollum is one of my favorite characters in fiction, and there's just a ton of Gollum in Return of the King, not to mention Shelob, the spider. But yeah, it is just really stirring. The climax is incredible. There's this very long coda that people sort of make fun of. You know, the movie goes on sort of an extra half hour. But
if you've read the books, it could go on even longer.
Oh, yeah. And it's just a really, really wonderful movie, just really stirring.
Gollum, one of the all-time best characters. My brother and I have a theory that all great characters are two characters at their heart. Walter White, Heisenberg, list goes on. Gollum is right at the top of that list, though. Gollum and Smeagol. The scenes where he's being tortured by himself are just fantastic.
Yeah, the inner monologues. Really sensational. It's kind of too bad Andy Serkis was so overlooked in terms of his acting. I don't think we as a society understood performance capture, and even now we kind of don't, but the performance is pretty spellbinding.
Oh, my God. I think we just didn't even realize he was in the suit.
Yes.
Or our brains just couldn't understand that.
Does not compute. Other acclaimed films, Lost in Translation, Clint Eastwood's Mystic River, Seabiscuit, which we talked a little bit about.
Those three just kind of...
People still talk about them. They're still on, but yeah, they're very much of the time.
They just feel very 2003 to me.
Absolutely. City of God, and then Master and Commander. This sort of caps the epic Russell Crowe run of him being in a super acclaimed Best Picture winner or adjacent movie for a few years in a row. And now he gave up smoking and he's just kind of a chunky actor, which is, hey, that's the dream, man.
Yeah, really solid. Again, another two-hander, Master and Commander. Would be one of the great ocean films of all time. Sadly, it just came out the same year that a far better ocean movie came out. Which
Which moves us into the popular category, Pirates of the Caribbean, Curse of the Black Pearl. Thing we love about this movie, the looks of the characters are pretty sensational. The script is great, the world is great, but just the realization of the characters. Obviously, Johnny Depp is Jack Sparrow. It's such a good character, such a good performance that he just did it for the rest of his career.
Yeah. Yeah, why not? Everybody loves him. He cured kids of cancer in hospitals.
Yeah. Another popular movie from that year, Bruce Almighty, sort of one of the last great Jim Carrey comedies. A story that comes to memory is, I remember you told me once you were a kid in Catholic school and it was a movie day and they showed Bruce Almighty. I think you guys were maybe in 6th, 7th, 8th grade, so you were kind of okay
to the age.
You were okay for PG-13. It's a PG-13 movie, but there is one scene where he's delivering a newscast and into camera he says, "Back to you, fuckers." And I remember the teacher you said was just absolutely horrified. Just like, oh, goodness, all these like middle school age kids.
You think PG-13 is just fine for middle school, and then you remember you're allowed one F word so long as it isn't a verb.
Yeah, I think that's true. Another popular movie, Elf. Great Christmas movie. Top 3, I'd say. How to Lose a Guy in 10 Days. Again, another movie I've seen half to all of countless times on TBS.
Main thing I remember about that, it's the Sacramento Kings playing the New York Knicks when they go on a date to Madison Square Garden. And Kate Hudson makes McConaughey get up and buy her snacks and a drink when there's like 3 minutes left to go in a tight game in the fourth quarter.
And that's how you lose a guy in 10 days. Yep. Another popular film, Holes. Can you give me a little Sigourney Weaver in Holes saying, "Excuse me"?
Excuse me.
Great. Moving on.
A couple notes on that. Oh. Thought the song "Digging Up Holes, Digging." I thought that was the coolest thing when I was that age. Also, remember thinking those guys look so old when I was a kid. You rewatch it now, they're very young, fresh-faced looking gentlemen.
Another popular movie, Matchstick Men. Really good, ticky Nick Cage performance in it.
Letting him cook, really.
Yeah, he's awesome. And then last one, Old School. Classic comedy.
Yeah.
Moving on to the Flynn Brothers' favorites. Oh, good. We got to a Nancy Meyers movie. Something's Gotta Give. That is one of my absolute favorite Nancy Meyers movies. I know you're not as big of a Nancy Meyers guy.
I'm gonna step back and let you go. Buddy.
Yeah, I love Nancy Meyers. I think, we all have a Chardonnay drinking middle-aged white woman in the Hamptons eating a bagel and cream cheese, even though we know we shouldn't inside of us. And watching those movies brings it out of me. Another thing, total flex in this movie. Diane Keaton's like maybe in her 50s, goes full nude, and obviously looks incredible. And I just remember rewatching the movie recently. And I'm like, man, what a flex! Like she is just like, check this out. I'm in my 50s. Body on point. It's quite a flex for a Nancy Meyers movie.
Is that more impressive than doing it as a woman in the flower of your youth?
Of course. Yeah. Well, it's like, I still got it. It's LeBron when he could, still he's 40, he drops, 35, 10, and 8. And
yeah,
it's just
with one of those double cock windmill dunks just for good measure.
Still got it.
Yeah.
Did you forget? Another Flynn brother favorite, School of Rock. I know one scene that makes you cry is the very end. Oh. Because the beginning of the film, he does the stage dive, falls flat on his ass, Jack Black's character, and then at the end, he goes for the stage dive during the climactic concert scene. And when they catch him, the look of elation, I remember looking over at you when we're watching that movie, tears streaming down your face. What is it about that full circle moment that
you know what it is, Jim? It's a long way to the top if you want to rock and roll.
Yeah.
That's what that movie's about.
AC/DC, please, God, don't sue us. We can't afford it.
No, it's just
right.
there. The band is cooking. Jack Black, no one else could play that role. It's really his just
born to play role.
Perfect role. There's also the other scene that really gets me stirred up is when they're first teaching the kids.
It's all, Linklater shoots it brilliantly. It's all one take when he shows all the kids how to kind of play their instruments and do the dan, 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 and it is just phenomenally staged. Mike White wrote the script, phenomenally written, phenomenally acted by Jack Black. It is just really a perfect movie. There's not a single flaw with it.
Another reason why it's a Flynn brother fave, Jack Black's job, quote unquote, in that movie, substitute teacher.
Yeah, when I go in, for a day of school, I always write Mr. Schneebly on the board, misspelled.
3 E's.
Another Flynn brother favorite, Kill Bill Volume 1. Volume 2 came out the following year. We talk about this. Pulp Fiction, you almost got to give the nod to for best Tarantino film just because of how impactful it is. But it's a flawed movie. Kill Bill is kind of his only movie that just to me is bulletproof. And if you really step back and are looking at best movies of the century and just how epic it is, just how stirring it is, how hilarious it is, how violent and exciting it is, and just the story it tells, very ahead of its time too in terms of portraying that type of female character, I would say. I just think it's one of the best of the century.
Absolutely. I don't think it's really been topped very much in terms of the badass female action hero character that's been ripped off a million times. The cast of it is not anyone who Hollywood was really banging down the door to get.
Daryl Hannah, Michael Madsen, David Carradine. These were not A-listers.
No.
Yeah.
I mean, Uma Thurman, sure. But the rest of them, Vivica A. Fox, these are people who just, he's a coach, a masterful coach in this, putting everybody in the right system.
Yeah.
Everybody's got the perfect role. Everybody's on screen for the right amount of times. The fact that you save Michael Madsen for basically the second movie is
phenomenal.
unreal. I mean, I think it's a really titanic, brilliant piece of work, and I'd even float it as maybe the best movie of the century so far. It's certainly a contender.
Curious. We'll get to that in part 4. Last Flynn Brother favorite from 2003, Bad Santa. Now, we recently during this holiday season watched It's a Wonderful Life, and we determined best Christmas film of all time. It's pretty unimpeachable. Unimpeachable. However, I always had Elf as number 2. I think it's pretty ironclad. But I rewatched Bad Santa recently. It's for sure top 3, and it's knocking on the door of Elf for me.
Oh man. Well, I think what gets forgotten is it's funny, it's foul, Billy Bob Thornton, perfect look for the character, but it really has this extremely sweet ending.
Oh yeah.
Like that
Yes.
that makes it a great Christmas film.
Even throughout, there's very sweet moments
Yeah.
of levity and tenderness.
He is the meanest SOB you could possibly imagine, and he takes the most snot-nosed, chubby, pathetic kid you could ever imagine under his wing, protects him. He gets gunned down by the police trying to deliver his Christmas present. Come on, it's a great film.
I think 2003 is a finalist year. What do you think?
I think so.
All right, we'll save it for part 4. We're going to go to break. We'll be right back. Okay, 2004. Acclaimed movies from this year. $1 Million Baby, which won Best Picture. The Aviator, Ray, and Sideways, a favorite of producer Will Slade. Paul Giamatti's best performance, would you say?
I'd say so. Really great film. Really, defined wine. Also a bit grim if you are less successful than you'd like to be pursuing a creative field.
Yeah, nothing for us to relate to. We mentioned the Diane Keaton nude scene in Something's Gotta Give. Sideways, probably the funniest male nude scene of all time.
Yes.
Popular movies from 2004. Collateral. This is a classic two-hander. Jamie Foxx and Tom Cruise. Cruise's performance is really awesome. I think the character is envisioned as sort of a coyote because it all takes place at night. It's in Los Angeles. He's dressed in all gray. They dye his hair and beard gray. There's one scene or one moment, Jamie Foxx basically a cab driver driving around a hitman who's making hits, played by Cruise. And there's a scene where these guys come up to the cab and Cruise gets out of the cab. And he basically just goes, "What up, homie?" And then just bop, 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 beats like 3 guys up, bang, bang, caps in their head. He always does like tap, tap, like he does like 2 shots, and each guy is kind of his go-to character thing. Really great movie. I think it's Michael Mann, I'm not my favorite director in the world, but probably my favorite of his movies.
Yeah, Cruise, absolute movie star. Always love it when it seems like he's having a blast in a performance, and this is one of those.
The Incredibles, another popular film. National Treasure. Gotta get the Declaration of Independence. Man, I did Holly Hunter instead of Nick Cage.
Yeah, you slipped into him.
The Notebook, very popular film. I watched this with my girlfriend, and one thing that just bugged the hell out of me, there's these like flash forward scenes where the Ryan Gosling and Rachel McAdams characters are old and married, spoiler alert, and the guy who plays Ryan Gosling, Ryan Gosling's character in the movie is very working class. I think it takes place like in the South or something. And the guy who plays him in the flash forward is this old guy. and he's got like super dyed hair. And it's like, not that if you're an old guy, you can't dye your hair. It just seemed odd that the Ryan Gosling character in this movie would grow up to be an old guy who dyed his hair a la Al Michaels on Thursday Night Football on Amazon Prime. So I know you haven't seen The Notebook. When you tune in, something to look for.
Keep my eye out.
Some great comedies that were also very popular. Mean Girls, Dodgeball, Anchorman, and Team America World Police, which has the definitive puppet sex scene, wouldn't you say?
Oh, I don't know that there's too many contenders, but yes, absolutely. Great, hilarious movie.
But all four of those, Mean Girls, Dodgeball, Anchorman, Team America, classic comedies I'll watch till the day I die.
Yeah,
All
among
hilarious.
probably some of the most quoted films, too.
Yes.
Probably, yeah.
Flynn Brothers favorites for '04. We got Shrek 2, our personal favorite of the Shrek movies. We think it's the best one. One of the joke densest movies ever made. I mean, there is just a gag, sight, or spoken every 5 seconds, it feels like.
They wring that lemon dry of any juice there is. They hit every fairy tale. Like, it is
Yes.
truly
Yes.
insane how many fairy tale references there are.
Napoleon Dynamite, favorite not only of us, but of the whole Flynn family. We'll, as a family, always watch this movie. I remember when our dad saw it when it came out, he was like, you guys got to see this movie. And he took all of us to go see it, and it's phenomenal. It's totally one where I've met a handful of people who are just like, I don't get it. And it's like, I don't blame you. It's a pretty bizarre movie, but if it's on your wavelength, it's incredible, man.
Yeah, I think the main performance, obviously, of John Heater's incredible. Uncle Rico, the great renaissance that he's had with White Lotus, could not have seen that coming a million miles away. Obviously, the dance scene at the end, just brilliant. It goes to our theory. It's always interesting to see someone dance on film. Final note, the soundtrack of this sort of like toy organ that they have running through it really ties the film together and just makes it cohesive.
Last two Flynn Brothers favorites for this year are movies that both make us cry. The first is the SpongeBob SquarePants movie, which is an incredible comedy, super funny. But there's this scene toward the end, kind of the climax, where SpongeBob and Patrick have been removed from the ocean and are taken to like a tchotchke souvenir shop and are going to be sold. And part of this process is they're laying under a heat lamp drying out and they're dying effectively. And earlier in the film, they go to this whole film is their quest to become adults. They don't want to be seen as kids. They used to go to this kids restaurant, Goofy Goobers, and they would sing, I'm a goofy goober, right? They sing the little song and eat their ice cream sundaes. So at the end of the film, they're under the heat lamp dying, and they sing together as they're dying, I'm a goofy goober, yeah. And like
You're a goofy goober.
and they're incredibly emotional in the moment. And you as the viewer are like, geez, this is not really going to get me, is it? And their tears, SpongeBob and Patrick, form as they slide down their bodies into a single tear that goes down the cord of the lamp and short circuits it and creates a fire, which sets off the sprinklers and rehydrates them so they're back to life. But yeah, man, it is so funny how that scene always gets us. But if you've never seen it and you're a SpongeBob fan, it's awesome.
It's a must. I think the SpongeBob show got a bit worse after about season 3 or 4. However, this movie, they're right back at it. Most of the time, one of these animated movies one of these animated shows gets a movie, it's pretty cooked idea-wise. Yeah. This one, full of it, a Hasselhoff cameo. I mean, it's just really great.
Yeah, we'll get to the Simpsons movie, another great animated TV show that made a great movie in 2007. But we're still in 2004, and we got to talk about another movie from this year that made us cry, a Flynn Brothers favorite, Miracle. So Miracle, about the 1980 U.S. hockey team that beat the Soviets. There's this incredible scene at the end where Herb Brooks, I believe, is the name of the character, the coach who coached the team. He's played by Kurt Russell. Brilliant, hard-ass role. And the team wins, and, he's had to be a hard-ass the whole movie. And there's this scene where the team's celebrating, and Herb Brooks leaves the team, and he goes back into, like, the hallway outside the locker room, and he's all alone, and he's in shadow, and he just is, like, pumping his fist, and, like, yes, like, he's just celebrating by himself. And I remember after the film, we'd seen it with our dad, and we asked him, we're like, Dad, we don't get it. Why didn't he celebrate with the team? Doesn't he love the team? Didn't he want to celebrate with the team? And what did Dad tell us?
Sometimes a man can't show emotion.
And that is, Nowadays, you'd call it toxic masculinity, but really, it was part of the movie and the story where he had to be this guy. He had to be this hard ass who put up this wall, and he had to do this in order to get them to win and to overcome all their fears and doubts and insecurities. And then there's just this beautiful, quiet moment where it's like, man, this meant more to him than probably anyone.
Oh, absolutely. What he does is he motivates the team by being the villain. And the villain doesn't wrap his arms around everybody after bringing them together. The other iconic scene from it is they've just gotten their asses handed to them in some tune-up game, and he's got them on the ice, and they're doing suicides. Again, tweet. Guys are tweet. Guys are throwing up. Guys are passing out. They're falling over, and the doctors are like, Herb, no, you can't do anymore. Again, blow the whistle. Then the one coach refuses to blow his whistle anymore. Herb takes the whistle. He's blowing it, and what he's trying to get the boys to do, because they keep saying, who do you play for? And they're like, University of Massachusetts and stuff like that.
They're all their colleges.
All their colleges. Yeah. And then one guy, Mike Ruzioni. Who do you play for? I play for the United States of America.
Everyone gets.
That's all, gentlemen. That's the scene. Yeah. So it's a toxic masculinity masterclass.
At its best. Yeah. All right. Great year. Not a finalist, I would say.
No.
Moving on to 2005, the acclaimed movies from this year. Crash won Best Picture. Brokeback Mountain. You've seen this. I have not seen this. Thoughts on Brokeback Mountain?
Great film. Way ahead of its time in terms of LGBTQ plus themes. The sort of funny thing that I got from it, watching it as a straight man, is that Heath Ledger and Jake Gyllenhaal are both such good-looking fellas that they're married to Anne Hathaway and Michelle Williams, and they couldn't care less. They have zero desire for either of them. The other great line in the movie is the guy who hired them to watch The Sheep, which is what they're doing up on Brokeback Mountain. He's like, you boys sure found the way to pass the time up there. Which is just...
He knew what was...
pretty understated, but also, I guess, bigotry.
A lot of echoes in that rural area.
Yeah.
Capote, another acclaimed film from that year. Good Night and Good Luck, Munich, King Kong, Cinderella Man. Sort of the last big lead role for skinny and shape Russell Crowe. Mm-hmm. Popular... Walk the Line. This was James Mangold's biopic of Johnny Cash. He really invented the modern biopic with this movie, so much so that they parodied it with Walk Hard, the Dewey Cox story. But more seriously, like every music biopic basically has just copied this formula. And so it's interesting to see James Mangold last year do A Complete Unknown, which was very much a subversion of the Walk the Line formula. So kind of interesting for him to sort of invent it. And then now that all these years pass and he kind of comes back to similar subject matter, he just goes in a completely different direction.
Absolutely. I'd say he also gets the two best performances in one of these biopics, maybe up there with Ray, Jamie Foxx.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, Chalamet as Bob Dylan is fantastic, and Joaquin as Cash is spitting image.
Another great Witherspoon movie, Walk the Line.
And of course the scene where he improvises
Folsom Prison Blues.
God,
man, that's another spine tingler. Pride and Prejudice, another great popular movie, almost more popular today than it was back then. It's wild to see Matthew McFadyen, who played Tom Wamsgans on Succession very famously, to go back to Pride and Prejudice and see him as the heartthrob, right? He's kind of the boob, the stooge on Succession. Mm-hmm. And then you go back to Pride and Prejudice and
he's this moody, brooding figure that Keira Knightley just can't get her hands around, and he's just totally transfixed by her. A lot of very funny lines in that elevated British diction way. If you're looking for just really well-written kind of funny repartee, in addition to the romance, there's something for everybody.
It's fabulous. Another great popular movie, March of the Penguins, wonderful documentary. Wedding Crashers, phenomenal comedy. The opening montage of them going to all the weddings and bedding all the different women is pretty hilarious. One of the greatest titles of any movie ever, the last movie in the popular category, The 40-Year-Old Virgin. I mean, that is one, if you're pitching that and you're an executive in the room and you're like, what's the title? Yeah, we'll buy it.
Yeah, we'll go ahead.
It just
greenlight that sucker.
Yeah, and that is one, too, where I think we're going to come back to this time and time again, the old circumvented idiom of the sum of the parts is a little more than the whole. I would say that's kind of true for this movie. There are some individual scenes that are just unbelievable and so iconic, but I don't know that I love just watching it start to finish.
That's an interesting take. I'd say this one is more on the line. I think it's a very, very complete film. Steve Carell, such a great lead role. All of the funny guys in it, too.
Oh, yeah.
It's unreal how stacked it is just around the edges.
And just as time's gone on, you're like, oh my God, they were in the movie too. All these guys, like Kevin Hart has one scene, and he's Titanic now, right?
Yeah.
All right, Flynn Brothers favorites: The Squid and the Whale. We mentioned this in part 1. This is our Noah Baumbach definitive divorce movie. We like it a lot more than sort of his subsequent divorce movies. Really prickish, phenomenal Jeff Daniels performance. Laura Linney, similar, just gives a really phenomenal prickish performance. Jesse Eisenberg, great early role. Just a really, really good movie. And then we have Hitch. Wonderful, wonderful Will Smith, perfect genre for him, sort of the comedy, romantic comedy kind of foot in both aisles.
I still think about the advice that he gives Kevin James on the dance floor.
Yes. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Like,
whenever you got to go to a wedding, it's like, maybe I should rewatch this scene.
Yeah. Well, it's just you keep it tight, you bring it in, but, Kevin James, he goes nuts, and that's what wins the lady.
That's true. You got to be yourself.
That's right.
Great movie, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang. That was right before Robert Downey Jr. got big with Iron Man and Tropic Thunder. This was sort of in the midst of his comeback. That's based on I think it's a Shane Black script. I'm not sure if he directed as well. Really good chemistry he has with Val Kilmer in that movie. A couple good comedies I think are pretty underrated. Kicking and Screaming, the Will Ferrell youth soccer movie. I remember growing up as someone who played youth soccer. That was the go-to sleepover movie.
It was the movie that capitalized on Americans realizing that espresso existed.
Yeah. Another great underrated comedy. I really like The Longest Yard remake with Adam Sandler, Chris Rock, Burt Reynolds, who was in the originals in it. It's not perfect, but it's a really fun fusion of the comedy world and sort of the hip hop, NFL, WWE worlds.
Yes.
There's some fun, guys playing inmates and playing prison guards who are in the NFL and WWE. And Sandler, it's quite a tricky tightrope to be funny, to be cool, to be believable as an athlete. Yeah, it's a really good movie, I think.
I think similar to Jack Black and School of Rock, Adam Sandler's the only one who you would be like, yeah, that's the quarterback of the team, and it's like Nelly and Michael Irving and like Stone Cold and all those guys are around him. It's he's just so cool and funny. The Sandman.
Another Flynn Brothers favorite, The Producers. So it was originally a Mel Brooks film that they turned into a Broadway musical, and then this is the film based on the Broadway musical. Nathan Lane, Matthew Broderick. It's terrific. Will Ferrell's also in this one, too. Really, really funny. Yeah. He plays a Nazi, but he's really funny. And Uma Thurman, also great in it. Really funny. A bit long. It's a musical, so musicals run long, but I think I remember looking on Rotten Tomatoes, it has like a 50-something%. I just don't get it. It makes me die of laughter. It is so funny, man. Last one, Flynn Brothers' favorite, Grizzly Man, the Werner Herzog documentary about the man who lived with grizzly bears and then was eaten by one when they didn't get enough food. The film really makes a pretty definitive statement about the line between man and nature, and it is just so fascinating being in Los Angeles, a city of everyone owns a dog and like everyone owns a pet, and like you watch Grizzly Man, not that dogs are grizzly bears, but just like it's just like people like kissing their dogs, letting them lick their face, being next to babies, and it's like I just watched this Werner Herzog movie where he's pretty clear like we shouldn't blur the line between man and beast, and it is like maybe I'm reaching, but it is just like it is hilarious that the movie is so definitive in the point.
Yeah, fair enough, but humans when the chips are down have been known to do what those grizzlies did to Grizzly Man. So hey,
that's true. 2005, good year, but I don't know if it's a finalist.
No.
Let's move on then. 2006, Acclaimed. The Best Picture winner was The Departed. So Scorsese finally won Best Director and Best Picture. This is a movie, Jack Nicholson's hams it up as a villain. Mark Wahlberg's performance is fun, but it's really a movie that's bogged down by the love triangle with DiCaprio, Matt Damon, and Vera Farmiga. They're all giving fine performances. It just, I don't know, it doesn't work.
I don't care.
Yeah.
Who she ends up with. None of them are really good guys. There isn't really love. I don't buy that any of them are in love with each other. No. They're all like these it's like 2 different situationships that she's caught in the between.
Situation.
And you're just not really.
A word that did not exist in 2006. Other Acclaimed movies: Babel, Letters from Iwo Jima, very 2006.
Oh, yeah.
Sort of award contenders. The Queen, same thing. Little Miss Sunshine, really great, holds up. There's a famous story of the screenwriter Michael Arndt wrote the script in 3 days, which, I'm sure there were countless rewrites, but it is a really phenomenal movie. Guillermo del Toro's Pan's Labyrinth, wonderful, wonderful fairy tale nightmare of a movie.
Yeah, you could throw that in the contest of one of the best of the century as well. Just
100%.
Guillermo, man, nobody does textures like Guillermo.
Yeah, every scene in that movie either has a yellow tint if it's like inside in kind of the fairy tale world, or it's a blue tint if it's like outside in the imperialist Spanish scenes. But yeah, no, it's just beautiful writing, visuals, perfect movie. Perfect. Last Acclaimed movie, Blood Diamond. Okay, moving on to popular.
Leo gives a nuts South African accent in that one.
Sort of in the Cameron Diaz Irish accent, Tom Hanks Boston accent category. Okay, moving on to popular. We got Dreamgirls, The Devil Wears Prada, cable TV all-star, Casino Royale. I would say probably the best Bond movie of all time. Do you care to argue against it?
No, I think it is because it's Daniel Craig and, everything's fresh and new. It's maybe 10% more lurid maybe than I think I was really understanding.
You're talking about when Mads Mikkelsen whips his balls.
Yeah, I guess that is what I'm talking about. Mads Mikkelsen, though, great in it. All the poker scenes are great. Jeffrey Wright, I'm bleeding chips. That's a great scene. That really kind of was very much at the height of the Texas Hold'em phase, too.
Yes, very
capitalized on well.
Other popular movies: Nacho Libre. Yeah, it's a good
Sorry,
one.
I gotta pause. This is another one that makes me cry, and it shouldn't. When he's gonna jump for the orphans, all the orphans, it's just great.
Gets you.
It's great.
Christopher Nolan's The Prestige, awesome twist. There's a famous, I forget the film reviewer, it might have been Peter Travers, but the famous line they put on the DVD cover is, "You'll want to see it again the second it's over." Something like that, basically. And that's very, very true. Hugh Jackman, Christian Bale, classic two-hander.
And David Bowie is Tesla.
That's right. Borat, one of the best comedies of all time. When I look back at this movie and I rewatch and it still holds up, how did Sacha Baron Cohen not win Best Actor? It just... Everyone is acting, and he just is this guy in real world situation. Like, is that not the epitome of what you're pursuing when you're pursuing acting? I think all these years later, it gets crazier and crazier. And it's not like it was shut out of the Oscars. I think it was nominated for Best Screenplay and stuff. And it just baffles me that he was not nominated for Best Actor, at least.
I think it's almost part of the Gollum situation where we just didn't even realize there was a guy in there. Yeah. Like, he was so real as Borat that you couldn't see past it. And one of the first movies that makes Americans sort of be like, geez, boy, we're not coming off awesome in this.
I'm going to sneak in another Nancy Meyers movie, The Holiday. It's a wonderful one. That's a four-hander, but it's a really great one. Really great one. Pursuit of Happiness, another popular movie from that year. I wonder, is there an alternate timeline if Will Smith had won Best Actor that year?
Well, certainly there is.
But we don't need to get into that. All right, next category, Flynn Brothers favorites. Stacked this year with just absolutely stacked with Flynn Brothers favorites. We have Pirates of the Caribbean, Dead Man's Chest, the sequel. We think it's the best Pirates. To me, it sort of encapsulates that second movie, bigger, badder, better, sort of, Empire Strikes Back, The Dark Knight, Aliens with the S.
Shrek 2.
Shrek 2. These sequels that improve upon the original, a little bigger budget, little bigger stakes, little bigger performances, and just it is such an effective swashbuckler.
The other thing it has that is another notice of my brother and I, when we see an actor get big, we say they start going to pasta lunches where they have gone out to talk to meetings with agents. Hey, you want to be in this? You want to be in that? Oh, sure, I'll have the carbonara. Oh, the gnocchi sounds fantastic.
Linguine with clams. Yes. Let's go for it. And you kind of start seeing it in the neck. These actors who hit in their second big movie, you'll be like, oh, their neck's a little thicker.
Yes.
And it's like they've been going to pasta lunches, getting tiramisu for dessert.
And you see this most with Keira Knightley and Orlando Bloom, who still look fantastic, but in the first movie, you can just feel how desperately they want this to work.
Right,
And they
right.
are actors who have not hit it big yet.
Well, Bloom had the Lord of the Rings movies, but yeah, those were kind of concurrent, right? He had sort of shot the Lord of the Rings movies back to back, and then this was kind of like, all right, like finally my first big budget thing.
Yes, but he's also an elf. He's got the blonde hair. He's got the ears. He's not himself. And Kiara as well. And then once they're in this, they're just like, everyone's just really comfortable in those skins. You get, Calypso, Davy Jones. Come on, what more can you ask?
Other Flynn Brothers favorites, Apocalypto, great Mel Gibson movie.
Brutal.
Yeah, very brutal. Hoodwinked, a fun animated movie. If you've never seen it, give it a watch. It's another pretty quick runtime and really, really fun. Really
got
fun.
the crazy squirrel character.
Yes, it's got the cuddly menace.
The cuddly menace.
Steve Martin's The Pink Panther. We tried watching the original Peter Sellers one, and it just felt like a comedy from the 60s that didn't age very well. We really love the Steve Martin Pink Panther.
It's so good. Steve Martin, man, he's just one of the funniest men to ever live, and this is a perfect buffoon character for him.
Thank You for Smoking. Wonderful satire. Aaron Eckhart's best role, I would say. Our dad's one of his favorite movies. Really, really sharp, really funny. Highly recommend if you've never seen it. Talladega Nights, The Ballad of Ricky Bobby. It's, in our top 5 movies of all time, we would say it's the best Will Ferrell comedy. We don't need to dive too deep into it, but, it works at face value as a comedy, and it just works if you take it as a drama. It just is a really well-acted, great movie.
Yeah. Anyone who doesn't like it, I'm immediately suspicious of.
Last Flynn Brothers favorite, Find Me Guilty. This is a Sidney Lumet. I never know how to pronounce his last name. This is a movie about Vin Diesel plays a gangster who's arrested and refuses to rat, and that's the whole movie. He decides to defend himself in the trial. It's the best Vin Diesel role, and I need you to gift our audience your take regarding Vin Diesel and his name and how it pertains to his character's name in The Fast and the Furious.
Vin Diesel's name should be Dom Toretto, and Dom Toretto's name should be Vin Diesel.
Yes, the actor is Italian and looks like his name should be Dom Toretto, and a character in a franchise about cars should be named Vin Diesel. Vin is even vehicle identification number. I mean, there's 2 car puns in one name. My goodness. All right, 06. I got chills. I absolutely love it. I think it's a finalist year. I know it's not top heavy, but there's a lot of Flynn Brothers favorites, and it behooves us to put it on to the finals.
Yeah, sturdy, solid year for film.
Awesome. All right, quick break. We'll be right back. (2007) Acclaimed films from this year. No Country for Old Men won Best Picture. It was in a 2-horse race with There Will Be Blood. Did you think the right one won Best Picture?
Yes.
Wow.
It is such a good movie. I can see why it did. I think There Will Be Blood is just it's very brutal. It's a lot to
We
deal with.
personally, I would say, prefer There Will Be Blood. I think we personally believe the Daniel Day-Lewis performance is one of the greatest you'll ever see in an American movie. However, No Country for Old Men is, as a film and just contained, and the performances and how linear it is, I think there's just a little more clarity and a little more to like for the average viewer. Would you maybe say that?
I'd agree. So you got Brolin, you got Tommy Lee Jones, you got Bardem. Kind of 3 great roles as opposed to sort of the one with There Will Be Blood. But
Maybe
boy,
that's why.
it's at least 2.5 performances given by Daniel Day-Lewis.
That's true. That's true. 2.5, not quite 3. Juno, another great movie. Diablo Cody, crackling script, really awesome. Atonement, Michael Clayton. Michael Clayton has had this recent sort of uptick in popularity and acclaim. I don't get it. I feel like we saw it and we're a little bored. Like, I love Clooney, but it was just a pretty root legal thriller. Nothing really stood out to me. How do you feel?
I love the concept of it. Didn't love exactly the execution. Believe I nodded off briefly. Perhaps it is of the Suits school of popularity, where it's just something you can throw on. Who knows?
Maybe. Last acclaimed filmed, American Gangster. Oh, there's another Russell Crowe movie. Although getting a little chunkier,
a little
maybe.
beefy. He might have been cutting from 3 to 1 pack a day. Man, what a Denzel performance, though.
And I am a pot calling a kettle black. Okay, popular. Sweeney Todd. I would say this is my favorite Tim Burton movie. I don't love Tim Burton style always, but I really, really enjoy Sweeney Todd. People criticize Johnny Depp singing. God knows we're not the best singers, and we've put out an album, but I think it's a really good, funny movie. Don't you find the humor kind of lands better in this one than other Burton movies?
Certainly capable. I think Burton is the right guy to tackle making human meat pies. Also goes to the Helena Bonham Carter School of Attractiveness, where the more clean she gets, such as in The King's Speech, couldn't care less. Absolutely no interest at all. In this, where she's making human pies and has filth under her fingernails,
it's true. Fight Club.
Yeah.
She's like kind of grimy. There is her sexuality was so wrapped up in like, has she showered recently? Is there grime under her
fingernails? Did she just crawl out from a chimney?
Right. All right, next one, Ratatouille, another great popular movie. Transformers, they've made God knows how many sequels, Bumblebee, etc. The first one's really great, though. Just a great Michael Bay movie. Megan Fox, Shia LaBeouf, really good supporting performances, good CGI, really fun theater-going experiences, I remember.
Nailed it, buddy.
I Am Legend, The Simpsons movie, another great animated TV show turned movie. 300, Hot Fuzz, beloved Edgar Wright movie. I really enjoy it. Don't know if I'm over the moon about it, but it's really, really, I'd say all his movies are just really solid. Maybe Baby Driver's my favorite of all his, but Hot Fuzz seems to be the one most people gravitate to.
Yeah, great concept. Hot shot cop gets sent to a little hamlet way out in England.
The scene where Simon Pegg jumps over the line of fences skillfully, and then Nick Frost just, fat man fall down. It always gets a laugh.
Yep.
Knocked Up, killer comedy. Hairspray, and then Superbad. Superbad, beloved by so many people our age. Rewatching it for the last time, the first 20 minutes, and it's just basically them going to school in that first 20 minutes. It is some of the filthiest dialogue I have ever heard in my entire life. And, famously, Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg wrote it starting when they were teenagers and wrote it basically for like 10, 15 years before it got made. But it's so well written. It's so funny. There's great set pieces. But that first 20 minutes is just, you're laughing so hard. Jonah Hill's making you laugh so hard. And the lines are just gutter, filth. Like, they are so filthy, but in the best way possible.
I wouldn't even say that it necessarily captures what it's like to be a high school boy, because I wasn't quite that filthy, but it does have the right feel, obviously.
Absolutely.
Man, it's funny.
Flynn Brothers favorites. Longest title you were going to read today, The Assassination of Jesse James by the Coward Robert Ford. This is an Andrew Dominic movie. The thing that really sticks out to me is the cinematography. It's Roger Deakins, who often works with the Coen brothers. There is this stunning shot in the film where they do a train robbery sequence, and it's beautifully shot, but there is this shot where the train's coming around the corner, and it's shot outdoors, and it's at night, and you just see the big headlight of the train through the darkness, and it is just, I can just like see it perfectly in my head. It is just a perfectly shot film. Casey Affleck, Brad Pitt, all the actors do really great work. And what's really cool is we went to Santa Clara and we both had film class with Ron Hansen, who wrote the book in which the film is based on. And it's weird. Just, it was a movie of No Country for Old Men and There Will Be Blood, these really big quasi-westerns, and then Assassination of Jesse James just kind of got overlooked.
Yeah, it just kind of came out in the wrong year, sadly, and doesn't quite have as much zhuzh, perhaps. It's much more sort of historically faithful. Although the one thing that just drove me a little bit nuts about the film is, like, Pitt, it seems like just, dynamite casting.
Right.
Brad Pitt, Jesse James. However, there is this one bit of narration where they talk about how Jesse James blinks a lot.
Right.
And Brad Pitt basically doesn't blink in the movie. And like, I just couldn't stop looking at that.
Yeah, early in the film, they're like, he was a man who blinked several times.
Almost as if he couldn't believe what he was seeing,
Yeah,
I think is the idea of it.
And then like it cuts to Pitt, and the whole movie you're just like, is he gonna do the blinking thing I was promised? Yeah, it is.
He never does. I don't know if anyone's ever done lots of blinks in a movie.
Matchstick Men.
Oh, there you
Nick
go.
Cage, Matchstick Men.
Should have called up Cage.
Very ticky performance. Another Flynn Brothers favorite, Blades of Glory. Ooh, what a two-hander. Will Ferrell, John Heder at the peak of his powers. Another one where the opening 20 minutes are pretty filthy, but unbelievably funny. Just a really funny movie. The movie doesn't quite hit the same highs as the first 20 minutes, but it's a really rock-solid comedy.
Yeah, it's basically sustained by those 20 minutes and just the ridiculousness of seeing Will Ferrell in a skin-tight outfit on ice skates.
The last Flynn Brothers favorite, Pirates of the Caribbean at World's End, although we should clarify, it's just the first hour. The first hour is really, really well made, and then it kind of just goes off the rails.
There's too many characters. The budget's too big. It feels like they started shooting it when the first hour was written, and then they were writing it as they were shooting it. But yeah, when they show up in Asia and they're doing the more steam scene and stuff like that, you're just
awesome.
like, oh yeah, we're in a whole different. I didn't even know this existed. I knew about Tortuga, but I didn't know this. Also, Keith Richards as Jack Sparrow's dad. Crazy. Awesome.
Much like this episode of our podcast, it's a little long. The 2007, do you think it's a finalist year? I don't know.
No, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Although there's some really top films in here.
Well, let's move on. 2008. The acclaimed films are Slumdog Millionaire, which won Best Picture, was also kind of responsible for the Academy opening up the Best Picture nominees to more than 5. You know, for a while they kind of did like 9 or 10. Now it's pretty routinely 10. But yeah, very much a prisoner of the moment Best Picture movie. You know, I think it's not very rewatchable. It just is so corny years later watching that movie. And, you know, Dark Knight, which many people thought was the best film from that year, wasn't even nominated. So kind of an odd year in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, it's a solid movie.
It is.
But it's, you know, in terms of Best Picture, it doesn't feel, you know, maybe, well, who knows? What I remember from it of the time, I remember there being unstoppable momentum behind it.
Oh, yeah.
Like it was sewn up early.
The Curious Case of Benjamin Button. I went and saw that. It's okay. I was a little bored during it. What I remember in the theater is someone had a laser pointer and was just laser pointing the entire time. And at first I was really annoyed, and then the movie was kind of boring. And I was like, am I watching the laser pointer more than The Curious Case of Benjamin Button? And I was, and I don't regret it. Next movie, Frost Nixon. We also have Milk and then Doubt. All very 2008 movies. Aren't all of those? Wow.
Yeah. Yeah, I remember Dad took me to see Frost Nixon, and boy, I needed a good amount of context to understand what was happening in that one.
And the whole time, Dad was just going, I am not a crook. And you're like, what are you doing? Is that Nixon?
He's like, that impression used to kill.
Yeah, now nobody knows who that is. Popular movies, The Dark Knight, which we mentioned, one of our all-time favorites, probably top 5, 6, somewhere in there, just one of our absolute favorites. I'm sure there'll be a Batman-centric episode in which we can deep dive it at some point. Another great popular movie, The Wrestler. The performance by Mickey Rourke is pretty titanic. The end scene is very impactful where he basically, Marissa Tomei is this stripper who wants to run away with him, and it's basically like, come on, leave behind the world of wrestling. You have a heart condition. And Mickey Rourke's basically like, the world never gave a shit about me. Those people out there chant my name. They're who I do it for. And the end of the film is, he's got this heart condition. He jumps off the top rope doing his, the ram elbow, whatever his finishing move is. You don't know if he's going to die or not, but it's sort of like Uncut Gems, how Sandler dies at his happiest moment. Even if Randy the Ram were to die there, it would be his happiest moment doing what he loves in his favorite outfit.
Yep, truly what a resurrection of the career. His look is absolutely perfect. Also, I realized The Wrestler came out after Nacho Libre.
Yes.
And they have basically the same climactic moment. So you wonder if it was, a little crib. Certainly Rourke pulls it off a little better. But
Randy the Ram Robinson, the only man to turn down a lifetime of love and affection from Marissa Tomei. Another great popular movie, Wall-E. I remember in the theater being pretty blown away that the first half hour was silent, seeing it as 11, 12-year-old, whatever it was. Pretty cool, though. Really cool. Iron Man. This was the sexy bad boy Marvel era, like I think in the first 10 minutes, Tony
sleeps with a journalist.
Tony
that old
Stark has
cliche.
a one-night stand with a journalist. You got Jeff Bridges with the shaved head. You got the commentary on the war in Iraq, and very, very sharp, satirical, interesting adult movie, and it's sort of just been sanitized away, hasn't it?
Absolutely.
From Marvel.
It's too bad. If it had kept that same tone, there's really something going, but probably just a lightning in a bottle situation.
Another great popular movie, Mamma Mia, the ABBA musical. How would you describe, let's let the audience hear your take. How do you describe ABBA's music?
Which I like, but it is Oompa Loompa pop.
Yeah, you think it's right. Dun, 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 dun.
Is that not the bass line to Dancing Queen?
But I did like Mamma Mia, I gotta say. I do love ABBA. There's a great scene with Meryl Streep singing The Winner Takes It All, and it's pretty phenomenal. Kung Fu Panda, another big popular movie. I remember after we saw it, it made us really hungry because the panda character keeps eating like dumplings and noodles. I think we immediately ordered Chinese takeout.
Yeah.
We're just like, we've been suffering for 90 minutes looking at this delicious animated DreamWorks food.
They make food look great and made Jack Black a comfortable man for the rest of his days.
Yeah. Twilight, very popular film. 27 Dresses, which I watched recently. Something that really struck me, very 2008. James Marsden's the male lead in this, and it's very much a male fashion of 2008. He's wearing the dress shirt, and then underneath, like a thick cotton Hanes shirt. And the dress shirt is buttoned down 2 or 3 buttons, and the thick cotton Hanes shirt, like it's gray, is just showing under the dress shirt. And he's like wearing this at like formal occasions and stuff. And I'm so glad we as men in society have done away with the thick Hanes cotton shirt under our dress shirts.
Right. Nothing wrong with a little collarbone and chest hair poking out.
Hey. If you got it, flaunt it. Another great popular movie, Baby Mama, another two-hander, Tina Fey, Amy Poehler. Step Brothers, great Will Ferrell comedy.
Yeah, I mean, I think that one is so funny because they're just like, let's just get McKay, Will Ferrell, and John C. Reilly back in a film. Let's see if it works. We don't even need, and it's awesome. Yeah, it's like a heat check.
Yeah, exactly. Pineapple Express, another great comedy. The House Bunny, which I had not seen till recently, great Anna Faris movie. There's this awesome scene where she's trying to seduce this guy, and she's trying to do the Marilyn Monroe 7-year itch thing where she stands over the manhole cover, is that what it's called, exhaust, and blows up her skirt and stuff. And she's like, goes over to it and does it, but the steam is so hot, it gives her just a scalding burn all over her legs. And then in the next scene, she just has horrific, like 3rd-degree burns. Really awesome sight gag. Okay, Flynn Brothers favorites from 2008. This one is popular and acclaimed, but Tropic Thunder, one of our all-time comedies, man. I cannot count the amount of times we ran it back on the DVD. It's just such a phenomenal movie.
100% similar to Zoolander. Ben Stiller's like, what if I play a jacked action star?
Yeah.
And it's like, yeah, you look completely like
Oh, God, and it's funny. He really can do it all.
Yeah.
In Bruges, great movie. Forgetting Sarah Marshall, that for me is a really timeless romantic comedy. There's almost this like screwball sort of 30s, 40s, 50s, Spencer Tracy or Cary Grant sort of thing going on. And then, there are the very modern elements with like Russell Brand, and then the bizarre elements like the puppet musical. But it to me just feels like a movie that's going to be funny in 100 years.
Absolutely. Mila Kunis given a great role. And I think the other thing that I remembered from that was the ad campaign for it was like just billboards that said like, I hate you, Sarah Marshall.
Take me back, Sarah Marshall.
Yeah.
And you're like, what is this?
Yeah.
Like, who did this? And you're like, oh, it's kind of a clever movie marketing campaign. You Don't Mess with the Zohan, one of our favorites. Sandler got absolutely jacked for that movie.
Yeah.
There's a shirtless scene in the beginning where you're just like, oh my God, the Sandman. And he's tan. He looks great. Really funny, though. Really, not a perfect movie, but really, really funny. Some good laughs.
The scene where, what's the joke? Where it's like, Mom, the
oh yeah, there's a very sadly still relevant line where he's like he plays an Israeli counter-terrorist who wants to move to America and open a salon, and there's the movie was written by Sandler and Rob Smigel, who are both Jewish, and he's basically, Sandler's like, Mom, I'm tired of the fighting, the Israel-Palestine fighting, it's all fighting, how much longer can it go on? And the mom's basically like, sweetheart, it's been 2,000 years. It can't be much longer. And it's just like, from like two Jewish writers, it's just such a brilliant joke and just like, really timeless.
Kind of hidden in a movie where there's tons of bush humor
Yeah,
and Sandman shagging old ladies in a back room.
Yeah. A very, clever, sharp joke in the filth. Yeah. Schenectady, New York, also Charlie Kaufman script. Yeah, really great Philip Seymour Hoffman performance in this. The ending is crazy. It's a movie that's basically just a guy's whole life in a movie.
Yeah, one of those films that's brilliant and leaves your mind sort of reeling and feeling like overstuffed and full at the end, but you wouldn't even necessarily recommend it to somebody. No. Like, I was really, really glad I watched it, but I was just like, settle in, be prepared to get a little sad and buckle up.
One last great comedy that's one of our favorites, Role Models. Really, really sensational. Good year. I don't know if it's a finalist. What do you think?
Yeah, some really strong ones up here. The kind of acclaimed ones, I feel like, are a little bit less impressive than the popular ones.
I would say, very popular heavy. I would say so. For those of you keeping score at home. All right, let's move on. 2009, Best Picture in the acclaimed section, The Hurt Locker. Avatar. District 9, that was a very interesting movie. Well, I think when I saw it as an early teenager, I thought it was real. I was like, there aren't really shrimp people.
Prawns.
There aren't, this didn't happen, did it? I think I was like halfway through, and Google wasn't as advanced back then. I couldn't get an easy answer.
That handheld camera, that shaky camera, threw you.
The cinema verite could easily fool me. Inglourious Bastards. It's a great Tarantino film. You kind of wonder where it fits in his filmography.
Yeah, I think it's one of those where I feel like the concept just isn't fully delivered upon. I want more of the Bastards. I was expecting it to be like a movie where they're roving around and just slaying Nazis. And there is this really, really cool scene with the woman, Shoshana, escapes Hans Landa, opens up the film theater, and, torches all the Nazi high command, which, ends up paying off very well, but it is kind of a slow burn. It's definitely a little bit more meditative. I think it's sort of summed up best by Sandman was supposed to be the bear Jew.
Right. The Eli Roth character.
The Eli Roth character. And as good as Eli Roth is in that role, I think the Sandman sells it. We're Sandman fans #1 over here. And I think he just lands it better. And it just feels to me like it's like, God, it is so good.
Yes.
But for whatever reason, it leaves me a little bit wanting.
The Tarantino hierarchy, I feel like Pulp Fiction, Kill Bill are at sort of the top layer. And then there's that second layer where it's sort of, I think, Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, Django Unchained. I think Inglourious Bastards is in there. It's kind of that second tier. Really, really good. Better than most directors' best movie. But for him, it's like just kind of a step below his best movies. But still great. Yeah. Still great.
Great Pitt performance, and boy, Christoph Waltz. Another time where Tarantino just, hey, check this guy out.
Yeah. Actor, writing, hand, glove. Other acclaimed films, Precious, A Serious Man, Up, and Up in the Air. Popular, Sherlock Holmes. This was the Guy Ritchie, Rock'em Sock'em, Robert Downey Jr. Sherlock Holmes.
Absolutely ludicrous adaptation of Sherlock Holmes. As somebody who reads Sherlock Holmes, Sherlock Holmes is a pensive man. He dresses up in costumes and gets in disguises. I have never, ever read a book where Sherlock Holmes breaks a man's ribs. It just doesn't happen. And he's doing it in every scene in this movie.
But it's awesome. That was me in the theater, 14 years old. That's awesome. I really enjoyed it. The Star Trek, The Hangover, all-time comedy. Really, really incredible. It got so popular, and so many people quoted it. It kind of had the Borat problem where it just got so popular. But now that some time has subsided, you can go back, and it's just a phenomenal.
The
comedy.
Tiger, Mike Tyson. I mean, there's just surprises around every corner.
Phenomenal. And despite being so surprise dependent, very rewatchable. Taken, which launched the Liam Neeson is a badass / AARP member era of his career. Really good though. He's done a lot of these kind of action movies in his later career. This one's really solid, though.
Absolutely. Stunning. It's rated PG-13. It is gruesomely violent. I will always remember where I first saw this movie. I was with my friend in high school at a Persian family gathering, and we watched it upstairs on a laptop, and we're just like, this movie rocks.
It's awesome. I just saw Sherlock Holmes. It's awesome. The Proposal, Ryan Reynolds, Sandy Bullock, great romantic comedy. 500 Days of Summer. Julie and Julia, another popular movie. I remember last time we watched it, we enjoyed it, but as good as Amy Adams is, we were really just fast forwarding to the Meryl Streep Stanley Tucci scene. Stanley Tucci just plays like a sort of smaller man who's just really turned on by the fact that his wife is Julia Child and he just wants to bang her giant tall body.
Yes, he wants to climb a little step ladder to kiss her. I mean, because Amy Adams plays like a blogger, and this was sort of, blog era,
Very
I
of the
guess.
time,
Very
yeah.
of the time, yeah.
Jennifer's Body, another good Diablo Cody script. One that, took a while to get some acclaim when it first came out, very mixed, but now very, very well received.
People just wanted to hate Megan Fox. And in this, it's like, oh, wow, she's incredible.
Yeah, one of her best performances, I would say. Paranormal Activity came out this year, very popular movie. It cost $200,000 to make. Care to guess what its box office was?
150 million?
194 million.
Wow, pretty close, John.
Yeah, it's as if you peeked at the notes and gave a half-assed answer so I could blow you away.
I undercut it, so yeah, exactly.
Next time, just tell me no. Look at us workshopping.
Yeah, we'll edit this part out. All right, there we go.
Last popular movie, Zombieland. Really, really good. Very rewatchable, too. Another good Eisenberg picture. Woody Harrelson. Couldn't be better cast. Really, really fun.
Did it kind of kick off a little zombie craze? Were there big I feel like zombies
Walking
really got
Dead,
big.
there was sort of a zombie craze. Good eye.
Zombie craze.
All right, Flynn Brothers favorites for 2009. Wes Anderson's fantastic Mr. Fox. Really fun animation style, really fun voice performances.
I think, too, it's just Wes Anderson was born to be in stop motion where he controls literally every single aspect of
Here,
the frame.
Wes, be God.
Yeah.
Great comedy. I Love You, Man. I really, really enjoy that one. Jason Segel, one of his best performances. Another two-hander with Paul Rudd. Really great.
If you were drinking every time we said a two-hander in this, you'd be under whatever table you were sitting at this point. No, that one is so funny. Lou Ferrigno popping up in that movie. Just a movie where it's like, it makes making movies look easy.
Yes.
It's just like a guy doesn't have best friends and he's about to get married.
Yeah. Needs a best man.
Yeah, and they just nail it.
Easy peasy. Really underrated comedy. One of our favorites, Observe and Report. One of our favorite Seth Rogen movies. One of our favorite Seth Rogen performances. Directed by Jody Hill, who has done Eastbound and Down, collaborated a lot with Danny McBride, Righteous Gemstones. This is just a dark movie. It came out the same year as Paul Blart Mall Cop, so they were both kind of these mall cop movies. But this one is sort of this like Taxi Driver 70s Scorsese meets Jody Hill, Danny McBride comedy, and Seth Rogen just is able to toe the line, and Ray Liotta gives a great villain performance opposite of him. Anna Faris is hilarious in it. Michael Pena is hilarious in it. And it is just a sensational movie. Everyone we have shown this to and we've brought it up to, they've been like, oh, I've never heard of it. And we show it to them and they're like, that's a really good movie. And it's dark, I will say.
Yeah.
There are some dark moments. So if you don't like dark comedy, it's probably not going to be for you, but it's really great.
Yeah, I mean, Seth Rogen plays an intellectually stunted mall cop who makes it his mission to catch the flasher at his mall.
And
stop at nothing.
Will Travis Bickle his way to achieve that goal?
It's unbelievable. Way better than it has any right to be. Just so stylishly shot.
Yeah.
And the ensemble, fantastic.
Sam Raimi's Drag Me to Hell. Crazy title. I saw it a few years ago. I can't believe it's as good as it is. It really is really, really good. Have you actually seen that one? It's really good. It's really good. You'll watch it and we'll discuss it part 3.
Put it on the list.
Funny People. This was sort of a mixed review Judd Apatow movie that Sandler chose to star in instead of Inglourious Bastards. A lot of it is kind of based on Judd Apatow's relationship with Gary Shandling, who he worked for on the Gary Shandling show. But there's a great chemistry between Seth Rogen and Adam Sandler. I think when this movie came out, I was 13. It's just like, oh my God, Seth Rogen and Adam Sandler are my two heroes, and they're in a movie about comedians together. Like, that was pretty awesome. And it's a flawed movie. It's overlong, but I don't know. I still enjoy it.
Yeah, some of the parts greater than the whole. So one of those.
I'd agree. World's Greatest Dad, very underrated movie, very underrated Robin Williams performance. It's really phenomenal. The comedian Bobcat Goldthwait wrote and directed it. Really phenomenal script. This movie is really about how we glorify people after they die. And it's interesting because it came out in 2009, and that was the same year Michael Jackson died. And I remember, like, before Michael Jackson died, he was not thought of very favorably. And then Michael Jackson died, and there's all these tributes. And then now it's kind of swung back the other way. But the movie is so spot on in terms of how even if people aren't great during their life, when they die, there's this human instinct to glorify them and want to be close to them and try to cash in on the sadness. And I don't know, it just to me is a very poignant movie.
Yeah, absolutely. You said it best, man. The ending is fantastic. An unreal Robin Williams performance as well.
Wrapping it up, we got our third Nancy Meyers movie. It's complicated. The idea behind this one is so sensational. Meryl Streep divorces Alec Baldwin because he cheated on her, and then it's years later, and she's cheating on who she's with him, her ex-husband. It just is.
And he's cheating on his current
right.
younger
It is
girlfriend.
just, she's like, I'm the other woman, and and she's still, she's like, oh my God, I'm still doing Julia Child from a couple years ago. But no, man, it is another great one. Pour yourself a glass of Chardonnay and watch it if you never have. All right, cool. We're going to take a quick break, and we'll come back with some final thoughts. And we're back. I went to break a bit in haste. We should say 2009, not a finalist year.
Not quite. I think our two are 06 and 03 that we will be revisiting.
Yeah, we'll talk about that at the end.
Oh.
All right, few end thoughts, just to give folks an idea of the structure here. See who's running the ship. We both agree this was a very strong decade for comedies. Do you want to take the liberty of listing the 38 comedies I have compiled from the 2000s? Do you think you can do it in one breath?
Legally Blonde, Zoolander, Austin Powers, Goldmember, Bruce Almighty, Old School, Bad Santa, Elf, Napoleon Dynamite, Mean Girls, Dodgeball, Anchorman, Team America, World Police, Wedding Crashers, 30-Year-Old Virgin, Hitch, The Producers, Devil Wears Prada, Borat, Hoodwinked, Pink Panther, Thank You for Smoking, Talladega Nights, Hot Fuzz, Knocked Up, Superbad, Blades of Glory, Simpsons Movie, Step Brothers, Pineapple Express, House Bunny, Tropic Thunder, Forgetting Sarah, Marshall, Don't Mess with the Zohan, Role Models, Hangover, I Love You Man, It's Complicated, Observe and Report. I could keep going for probably about 30 more movies. That's the lung capacity your brother's got.
Not bad. Yeah. To me, it's just incredible. Like, I know with our friends and just people we've talked to, there just don't seem to be that many great comedies anymore. And you look at this and it's like, okay, that's 9-10 years. That was 38 movies we listed. We probably missed a couple. It's about 4 classic comedies a year. And, I've seen interviews about this, and a big reason why there aren't comedies made like this anymore is studios sort of stopped investing in these higher budget comedies. They stopped paying guys like Will Ferrell, Jim Carrey, $20+ million a movie to do these comedies. Just the names didn't sell as much. But the big thing was everyone owned these movies on DVD. Even if these movies didn't have great box office, which they usually would have pretty good box office, they would make so much money on DVDs. Like, growing up, everyone had a DVD of Talladega Nights.
Yeah.
So many people had a DVD of Knocked Up, Role Models, on and on. And it's just kind of, as cool as streaming is, it's just kind of a shame that one of the victims of this media era is the great classic comedy. It just doesn't make fiscal sense. And if things don't make fiscal sense, people are less likely to invest in them.
Yeah, I also wonder if the stable of leading comedy actors is not quite as deep as it once was. I mean, these are like, we've got Jim Carrey, we've got The Sandman, we've got Will Ferrell, we've got,
Seth Rogen.
Yeah.
Owen Wilson, Jack Black, Vince Vaughn.
Yeah.
It's incredible. Yeah.
Yeah, I just don't know if there's those people anymore.
Yeah.
Reese Witherspoon, Tina Fey.
Lindsay Lohan.
Yeah, exactly. And just, you wonder if... I don't know. I don't think there is quite.
Yeah.
And it
could be a talent
issue. Is it a
issue,
chicken or an egg situation? Is because there was less of this investment that there are less actors going for this? Are they not building up the minors like they used to?
I think part of it too is in modern comedies, you just don't see like something that's so great about all these comedies is the main characters are willing to look foolish and willing to make an ass of themselves and be the jester and be the clown. And so much comedy nowadays is just so dialogue based, and I'm kind of cool and I'll do the joke, but I want to be ironic. And it isn't like just fall through, fatty fall down, pie in the face, kicked in the balls. Like these are things like, not that they're what make these movies great, but it's just like there's been a bit of a dearth of that, I think, in modern comedies.
I think you could also say that almost all of these movies have like one or two scenes in them that from a modern perspective, people are like, oh, I don't know if we do that. And I think there is a little bit more of a timidity. Not that there's anything wrong with, wanting to have things that make people feel included and that there's no overtly cruel jokes at the expense of people who shouldn't have jokes made about them. But I think there is this cultural tightness around kind of pushing the envelope in a way that a lot of these movies did.
I would be remiss if I did not mention that Nancy Meyers has 3 stone cold killer films from this decade. What Women Want came out in 2000. It's okay. I'm not going to mention that one, but Something's Got to Give, The Holiday, and It's Complicated. Rewatchable. I'm telling you, if you have not seen these movies, they are sensational. They are like eating a big bowl of buttery mashed potatoes. That's how they make you feel. They're just wonderful.
They go down easy. They're sweet. They're
I don't know that mashed potatoes are sweet, but perhaps
buttery. I'm really struggling to connect the metaphor, sadly.
Part of the research as we were going through these movies, we realized there was a very definitive Larry the Cable Guy spike. He had sort of this 3-year run. And it's funny because if you mention to anyone from Gen Z or Gen Alpha, you tell them, do you know who Larry the Cable Guy is? The first thing they'll say is, well, what is a cable guy? And then they'll say, who the hell are you talking about? And Larry the Cable Guy, 06. Huge voice role in Cars, and he starred in Larry the Cable Guy, Health Inspector.
That's a funny title right there.
You want another one? 07, he stars in Delta Farce. And then 08, he's in Witless Protection. So all these very pun-based titles. But yeah, dude, it is just so funny. It is such an 06, 07, 08 thing of just Larry the Cable Guy was the king. He was making crazy amounts of money with the Blue Collar Comedy Tour, which, could be worth revisiting in a future episode. I'll bookmark that.
Absolutely. Look, that made us laugh a lot.
Yeah, dude. A lot of it is like funny. I just think, people find a lot of those guys funny in different ways. But yeah, very interesting. Larry the Cable Guy, just A-list those 3 years. And then since then, I don't know, he's probably just enjoying the millions, I'd have to imagine.
Yeah. Probably rides ATVs on a huge property.
Yeah. We talked about Orlando Bloom a bit, his epic trilogies, Pirates and Lord of the Rings. I think we can pretty definitively say which one is better, objectively at least.
Right.
Lord of the
Pirates. No, Lord of the Rings obviously is better. Although I would say that perhaps, would you take like one of the Pirates movies? Certainly the third Pirates movie is the worst of the bunch of those 6.
For sure.
Then, and we don't even need to discuss the post-third Pirates.
No, God.
franchise.
They don't exist as far as we're concerned.
Yeah. But like, would you maybe take 1 and 2 over a Lord of the Rings movie?
This is going to break Will's heart. I would probably take him over the 2 Towers. Take the headphones off. Hurry. I do think Return of the King's the best of all of them, probably.
Okay.
In terms of my personal favorite, I mean, look, man, we saw Dead Man's Chest in the theater. I think we were in San Francisco when we were, 10, 11, 12 years old. And so it's just certain things that's the nostalgia's baked in. So, we really love those movies, but I don't know. Objectively, I think I got to say probably the first and third Lord of the Rings are better.
We wouldn't be good scientists if we weren't poking at these things.
Let me ask you this. What's the better Bloom performance? Is it Will Turner in the Pirates movies or is it Legolas in the Lord of the Rings movies?
Will Turner is a better all-around character, arguably the main character of the Pirates trilogies, but Legolas is sweet. He's
he's
so
awesome.
sick.
The thing where he slides down the elephant's trunk shooting the bow and arrows.
Yeah, just absolutely.
I will say this. I'll talk to women and are really swoon over him in the Lord of the Rings trilogies, which I would figure they would find him more attractive in the Pirates movies. I certainly do, for what it's worth.
I feel like the real stud of the Lord of the Rings movie is Vigo.
Oh,
of
yeah,
course,
Aragorn.
Yes.
Yeah. Strider, some call
Yes,
him.
yes.
So I think, okay, let's wrap up. I think our finalist years that we're going to send into part 4 to duke it out with 2019 are 2003 and 2006. Are you good with that?
I am. I think those are our champions of this decade.
Sweet. So we'll, in future installments, part 3, we're going to look through the 2010s, and then in part 4, we'll look through the 2020s and recap, which is the best movie year of the century. Please subscribe, comment, and leave a rating. Send questions, comments, or big idea suggestions to our business email, flynnbrospod@gmail.com. Thank you, as always, to our producer, Will Slade, and we'll see you next time on the Flynn Brothers Podcast. Take care, buddy.
You too, buddy.